Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and to this floor coffee table laptop setup because we are going to be looking at some spreadsheets and some charts. So a while ago I did a video where I time tracked for 6 weeks my work tasks and kind of on a micro scale like what I was spending my time on in terms of work, and I hated it and I vowed never to time track again, and yet here we are. But the difference is that this is on a macro scale, so I'm not having to like document it and switch tasks every few minutes or every hour. We're thinking big picture here. What I was curious to know was how much time am I actually spending working versus parenting and housework versus leisure time versus sleep. So that's what I did. For those of you wondering, I used an app called Now Then, and for what I needed it for, I only needed the free version. I thought I needed the paid version for one thing, and then I bought it and then realized that I didn't. But the reason I used this one was for the simplicity. I wanted there to be as little friction as possible between me and actually tracking what I was doing with my time. But this is what it looks like, and the reason why it was so easy is because I could literally just tap and it would start. So if I was like, right now I'm working, so I'd like tap that. But then if I was just switching to something else, I'd be like, and now I am doing some housework, and I just do that. And then you could see today, I mean, you can't, it's so tiny. There it is, and you can get that kind of view of it. So if we go back to the last day that I did. So this is the last day. This is what it comes up as, but then you can also view it as like the previous week or month or all time, and then chart versions as well. So that was the app that I used, and for what I needed it for, excellent. Very, very good. Before I started this, I also made some predictions. But before I get into my predictions, the categories that I used, and of course the data, one of the ways that I do manage to save time on housework, like cooking meals and doing the food shop, is by using HelloFresh, who are sponsoring this video. HelloFresh is fresh, pre-portioned ingredients with delicious recipes delivered right to your door. It is super convenient and saves me loads of time on cooking and meal planning and food shopping, all of that. I've been using HelloFresh for years and it has suited my lifestyle and needs at lots of different stages. So right now it really helps with having a family and limited time and needing to have like quick meals that I can cook that are nice and easy, like love having a recipe to follow. And now we get the 4-person box, so I only have to cook once and then we freeze the leftovers, which saves us even more time and money. But when I was just cooking HelloFresh for myself many years ago, it was great because there was so much less food waste when you're like shopping and cooking for one, which is very useful and I loved. And of course, it continues to help me save money and reduce food waste. They have a wide range of recipes, perfect for the cozy season as it is getting colder and darker. Everything from super quick meals that can be cooked in 15 minutes to street food. I am a very fussy eater, and I do believe that using HelloFresh over the years has helped me expand the kinds of foods that I like. This week we got speedy teriyaki sesame chicken, quick goulash inspired beef, and veggie peanut noodle stir fry. Yum, yum, yum. And of course, HelloFresh have an offer for you. If you use my code 60HelloHannah, then you will get 60% off your first box and 20% off for the next 2 months and free desserts for life. What? Oh my God. I want free desserts for life. And this offer is available for new customers, but also for customers who've cancelled at least 12 months ago. So thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Link in the description. Go and enjoy lots of tasty, tasty meals. Okay, it is categories time. How did I, in my head for this experiment, split my time? So the first category I called body admin, and this basically included mostly sleep. Let's be real. It was mostly sleep, but then I used the general body admin category to include things like getting ready in the mornings or getting ready for bed, changing my stoma bag if I needed to go to the pharmacy and pick up prescriptions. That's some body medical admin. But I'm gonna say this now, the general body admin percentage is lower than probably what it really is, because I did not track every time I went to the toilet. I did think about breaking up sleep if I got up to go to the toilet, which I often do, or breaking up the sleep tracking for parenting as well, like if Rowan woke up and I needed to settle him. But those things are usually done so quickly that I just didn't, but it's fine. So there's my caveat about the body admin situation. Next big category is paid labor, and I split this into 3 subcategories. The first is actually working. So I'm actually doing something. Like right now, this is me actually working. And then the other 2 were work break and commute. So that would be if and when I took a lunch break or any other kind of break during my work day. And then commute, I don't commute every day, but this was if I was ever going into town for a work meeting or a work event or something. Then we have unpaid labor, and this was split into 2 categories, parenting and housework. Now here's the thing about parenting. It trumps everything. My main goal with these categories was simplicity. So obviously there's lots of multitasking, but with the app that I used, you can only track one thing at a time. It doesn't compute multitasking, but that was fine because I didn't want to, because then it just gets so complicated. But in my mind, if I was with Rowan, that trumped anything else that I was doing. So if I was doing housework, but Rowan was around, if I was with my friends, but Rowan was around, if I was getting ready in the morning, if I was on the toilet, but Rowan was there, then I tracked it as parenting. My thought process behind this is that if anything were to happen to him, or if he needed me, whatever else I was doing, doesn't matter, I'm in mum mode. The other thing that I tracked as parenting was the childcare run there and back. Because even though half of it I do by myself and I might listen to an audiobook and it feels like me time, I wouldn't be doing that walk if I hadn't been dropping off my child at his childminders. So I very much still counted that as parenting and not as me time or a commute, because if I didn't have Rowan, I wouldn't be doing it. And now with the housework category, to be honest, most of it gets done when Rowan is around. So it's probably lower than actually if you added up all of the time that I do spend on housework with or without Rowan. I did track something as housework if I was doing it when Rowan wasn't around, or if Dan was with Rowan in another room. So I could switch the parenting side of my brain off, basically. And then leisure time. And I split this into 3 categories: me time, Dan time, and social time. So me time, this is hobbies, reading, watching TV, but my TV, not TV with Dan. But mostly my hobbies at the moment are tennis and running, or when I go to a book club as well. Oh no, but that's social time. Also, if I was going to meet some friends somewhere, but it takes me 40 minutes because I live in London and I've got to get the tube, I would count that tube time as me time and not social time, even though I was going to meet some friends. So Dan time is pretty much tracked from the moment Rowan goes to sleep and it's just me and Dan hanging out. If Dan and I are doing separate things but sat next to each other, like he's playing his video game and I'm reading or watching TV, then I tracked that as me time, because Dan and I weren't having actual time together. But Dan time stuff would be if we were just chatting or playing board games or watching something together. And then social time was anytime we were with friends or family, and that could be with or without Dan. So it could be just me and my friends, or if it is me and Dan and our friends but no Rowan, then that would be social time. So those are my categories. And so we're getting closer to the data, because now I want to share with you my predictions. So I tracked for 5 weeks, 35 days, and the amount of time that I tracked total was 846.94 hours, which is pretty impressive. I tracked almost every minute. 0.06 hours is what I did not track in the app. So pretty good going there. So these were my predictions that I made before I started it. And I only made predictions for the big parent categories and not the subcategories because my brain could not. So at the beginning, I predicted that I would spend 30% of my time on body admin and probably mostly sleep, let's be real. I thought I would be spending 25% of my time on paid labor and then 30% of my time on unpaid labor. So I was feeling pretty sure at the beginning that because I work quite short days and 4 days a week, that unpaid labor would be more than paid in terms of my time. And then I predicted 15% of my time on leisure. So I'm going to show you the data, and then I have some questions that I wanted to get out of the data. And then I also asked my followers on Instagram what questions they had about the data and the process and my thoughts and feelings on it all. So we will get to those too. But first, data time. Okay. So with the app, it does give you some data. It does give you some pie charts, right? But it did not give me all of the information that I wanted to be able to answer the questions that I had. So I ended up inputting all of the data into an Excel spreadsheet. And here we are. So this is the breakdown of everything, the percentages of all of it. And then I also made a table in Excel, which was helpful for me because I needed to name the days of the week. We'll get onto that. And then I had another one, which was separating the days of the week. I maybe could have done all of this in one sheet, but I ended up using 3 separate ones because I don't know what I'm doing, but we got there eventually. So first, this is going to be the parent categories, the big categories breakdown. Okay, let's talk through this. So body admin actually came in at 35.3%. The next biggest slice of the pie was unpaid labor at 33%. Then, and this is genuinely the biggest shock for me, they're quite close, but leisure time is higher than paid labor. So my leisure time came to 16.7% and paid labor was 15.1%. So that is, I think I guessed what did I guess for paid labor? 25%. But I made a comparison chart. Right, predictions versus reality. So body admin, 5% off. Unpaid labor was pretty close, 3% off. Leisure time, pretty close, 1.7% off. And then this situation, almost 10% off. Basically, I thought I was spending less time sleeping, parenting, and having fun. And I thought I was spending more time working. Interesting. I will say now, because obviously this isn't the first time I'm seeing this because I've been staring at these numbers for a while. My first thoughts when I saw that my paid labor time was lower than my leisure time was guilt. I was like, oh no, I'm doing life wrong because I'm not working as much. I should be working more than I am having leisure time. And I'm sorry, Hannah, I have completely changed and restructured my work life in a way that suits me and in a way that when I think about the balance that I have, I am very grateful and it feels really good. And then my first thought then when I'm presented with the hard numbers of it is, no, you need to be working more. No, you are not being productive enough. No, you are not contributing to this capitalist society. Why aren't you working more? You're not allowed to have fun. You're not allowed to do things that don't contribute, that aren't productive. And I get how lucky I am, completely. But it was just wild to me that when I first saw those numbers, my thought was, oh no, I'm not doing it properly. It is so ingrained in us. It is so ingrained in us that our value comes from work. Anyway, that's that little thing. But let's look at our subcategories totals. So this is the breakdown in details. 33.5% of the time was spent sleeping. A third. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? A third of my time was spent asleep. Fucking nailing it. And then 1.8% of time on body admin. But like I said, this would probably be slightly higher, but you'd have to shave it off every other category like a little bit. Then when we get to paid work, 13.1% of my time was actually working. 1.2% of my time was taking a little work break, and 0.8% of my time was commuting. And my God, am I grateful for that. The odd times when I do have to get on the tube at rush hour, I'm like, how do people do this every day? But then unpaid labor, 30.7% of my time was parenting, and then 2.3% of my time on housework. But like I said, a lot of housework gets done whilst I'm doing the parenting. And then the breakup of leisure time, as you can see, is a lot more evenly spread. So 6.8% on me time. Love that for me. 5% of time is Dan time. And then 4.9% of time was social time. So that's the splits. So the other thing that I was really interested to find out was the averages over a week. So I've got 5 weeks to work with here, which is not bad. And this is what that looks like if you can make sense of this chart. So along our x-axis, we've got the days of the week, Monday to Sunday, and then the height is the percentage of time. So this one here is sleep, this green one here. So that's like pretty steady. Takes a dip on Thursdays, apparently. But also, now that I'm remembering, because the app works midnight to midnight, that won't be like Wednesday night's sleep. It will be like half of Wednesday night's sleep and some of Thursday night's sleep. But I feel like I do tend to go to sleep around like 10:30 and then wake up around 7:30. But yeah, sleep is pretty steady. As you can see, this blue line is the parenting line. Apparently it also takes a dip on Wednesdays. Don't know what happens on Wednesdays. I'm just like, peace out, Dan, I'm good. You can take over. But then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is big old parenting days. Friday is my day off with Rowan, but interestingly, the average for Fridays is lower than it is on a Saturday. And the Saturday, Sunday is when Dan and I are both around. My theory of why on average Friday is lower is because if either of my parents are visiting, usually they come down on a Thursday evening and then they are around all day Friday, and oftentimes they'll take Rowan out, or I'll get a lie-in whilst they're with Rowan. So even though Friday is like my day with Rowan, it is also often the day where if I do have grandparent childcare, it will be on that day. So I will also be doing a bit less. Oh, and actually, as you can see, we've got a spike of social time on Fridays. Oh, I am pretty sure that during this 5 weeks, I went to see the Eras tour, which was on a Friday. So yeah, there's a little Eras tour spike for a Friday, and maybe some other social times as well. This yellow line is actually working. So as you can see, also dips on a Thursday. Clearly, I'm just like, I check out a bit Thursday afternoons. I'm like, I'm done. And then plummets Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just non-existent. And then what else have we got? We've got, yeah, these red ones are all the different social lines, which all are kind of like samey same. Sunday, I do not socialize on a Sunday, it would seem. This one, this is me time. Okay, so me time is pretty steady, like, and it actually increases on the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And that's probably because Dan and I are both around, so we can kind of alternate and give each other a bit of time to ourselves. And then apparently the housework, see this? The housework's pretty low. And then housework on a Sunday is apparently when things really kick off. So there we go. That's what I'm getting from this. And then the final graph that I've made for me, is a comparison of weekdays versus weekends. But I've included Friday in my weekends because I don't work Fridays. And so this is the breakdown of each subcategory. Blue is weekdays, red is weekends. So sleep, basically the same. Body admin, I get more time for body admin on the weekend, which makes sense because weekday mornings, Rowan is just there whilst I'm getting ready, whilst I'm showering, everything. So I'll track that as parenting. Whereas on the weekends, because Dan isn't rushing straight off to work, Dan is around. So oftentimes I get to shower and get dressed in peace. And then of course, you've got actually working, actually 22% of my time Monday to Thursday, and then only 1% of my time Friday to Sunday. Work break and commute, low, but that doesn't even get tracked on the weekends. It's just a weekday thing. Parenting, weekdays averages 23% of my time, but then on the weekends, 41% of my time is parenting. And then housework, 2% during the week and 3% on the weekends. Me time, 6% during the week and 8% on the weekends. Look at that. Dan time is the same. And then social time, yeah, that also goes up on the weekends. 6% weekends, 4% weekdays. So those are my graphs. And now I have some questions, and you have some questions. So one of the things that I was curious about was how many Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays did I spend working? Even if it was just for a minute, how many of those days did I track any work? So over 5 weeks, there were 15 Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays total, and I did some work on 6 of them. So that's 40%. 40% of my weekends, I did some work. However, the average amount of time tracked was 2.8% on those weekend days. It ranged from 0.1% to 5.8%. And the other question that I had was, how many days did I have zero social time outside of work other than Dan? So this doesn't mean I didn't speak to anyone, because occasionally there would be a work event, so I would be socializing with other people, but I tracked that as work and I didn't track it as social time. Or I was meeting up with somebody in relation to work and we were working, but then we had lunch and I tracked that as a work break and not social time, which maybe I would do differently. Maybe I would track that as social time if I were to do this again. But anyway, the question is, how many days did I have zero social time? That was basically what I wanted to know. And it was 23 out of the 35 days. So 65.7% of my time, I do not see my friends. That's quite sad. That's hard, but I tend to do it in big chunks, because what I discovered was that on the days that I did socialize, on the days that I did track social time, it averaged 11.8%. So it was always like quite a huge chunk of time of my day, but I just didn't get to do it very often. Interesting. So now I want to get to all of your questions, and hopefully either me or the data will be able to answer them sort of. We'll see. So, how much housework are you doing compared to Dan? Now, Dan did not track his time, and I'm pretty sure there is no way I will ever be able to get Dan to track his time. So let's just forget about that dream. But I would say I probably on average do more, just because a lot of it does get done whilst I'm with Rowan and I am parenting more than him, especially on the weekdays, because my work days are shorter and I do most of the childcare, drop off and pick up. So I'm probably doing more housework than Dan. However, as we are currently renovating our bedroom and some of the more buildery type tasks involved in that, that's all Dan, and that is taking hours. So, I do the washing and the cooking and all of the little things that keep our lives ticking along, and then he builds a wardrobe that takes a day and a half to do. Okay, how many days did paid work exceed unpaid? Great question. So I had a look, and out of the 35 days, on 10 of them was when my paid work exceeded the unpaid work, which is 28.5% of my time. And that's quite interesting to me, because I feel like I knew that I spent more time parenting than I did on my paid job, because in my predictions, I predicted it as such. But the difference was only 5%. I thought 30% for unpaid and 25 for paid, I think was my predictions. And in fact, the difference is just a lot bigger than I expected. And the fact that only 10 out of the 35, I spent more time working than I did parenting. I'm like, oh, interesting. Do I want to change that though? Don't think so. Okay, a lot of people ask this next question, which is, how much could you be earning if your unpaid labor was paid? Great question. So I tallied it up, and all of my unpaid labor came to 277 hours in 5 weeks. If I was paid minimum wage for those hours, which here in London is £11.44, in that 5 weeks, I would have earned £3,168.88. which, wow. Wow. What is that as an annual salary? Oh my God. Okay, wait, hold on. I didn't do this maths. Right, annual salary. So as a yearly salary, that is £32,956.04. Let's round it up to 33K. That's a full-time job salary. That is more, I believe, than the average salary in the UK. Just saying. Obviously, happy to do it. It is my child after all. Okay, but interesting. How much me time did you actually have compared to what you felt like you had? That is interesting. But I think my prediction of leisure time was the closest one to the reality. I do feel like I get more me time than Dan, but that's just because the way that me and Dan enjoy and do and want me time is very different. But what was it in the end? It was like, I think, was it 6.8% me time? Yeah, 6.8% of my time was me time. Obviously, I've got nobody else's data to compare to, and we all kind of have slightly warped perceptions of how other people spend their time. Like, we don't always know the truth of it. The percentage of me time that I got felt accurate to how it feels in my lived experience. How much would this compare to someone with less privilege? So this is a good question because yes, I have a lot of privilege in this situation. My job is very flexible and I can work less, and that is for a few different reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because of the flexibility of my job and all of the work and luck that I had in my work, up until having Rowan, and then being able to downsize and being in a position where I can do that, because I am working less and I'm earning a lot less than I was before, but I'm in a position where I have the savings to be able to do that and a reliance on my husband's income. Just gonna say it because I have been in rooms before where women are talking about the businesses that they've started on the side, after they become mums, and I'm just sat there how the fuck did you do that financially? And there is no mention of the wealthy husband. And I'm just I don't understand. The math is not mathing. And so I want to acknowledge the husband situation in my situation, because I would not be able to have reduced my hours and reduced my pay in the way that I have if during the last 2-3 years, Dan's income hadn't have increased. Basically, we are a very stereotypical couple in terms of the data of what you see when a man and a woman have a kid together and what happens to their income and their careers, which is it just kind of there's an inflection point of the man's goes up and the woman's goes down. And that's what's happened with us. And honestly, when I look at the amount that he works and the stress that he sometimes comes home with and the commute that he has to do, I'm rather you than me, mate. So to answer your question about how would it compare to someone with less privilege, I don't know, because obviously everyone's situation is different. Probably more paid work time and less leisure time. That's my main prediction, but I don't know. What percentage of time is solo childcare versus together with Dan? So I did not track this. I just tracked all parenting as parenting, whether it was just me or me and Dan or me and my parents or whoever else was there. But if we look at that line chart again, that weekly line chart, most of this parenting that is happening Monday to Thursday, that is mostly me, because Dan leaves quite early in the morning, and so the morning stuff is mostly me. And then Dan gets back, and within an hour and a half of Dan getting back, Rowan is asleep. So I would say on an average Monday to Thursday, 2 hours of that parenting time is with Dan, and the rest of it is just me. And then on the weekend, I would say it's 50-50. And not 50-50 in terms of parenting, because the question was solo childcare versus with Dan childcare, because we kind of do a lot together. But then on the weekend, we also kind of take it in turns for Dan to take Rowan out so I can have some me time, or I go out, see my friends, and Dan takes Rowan, or I take Rowan out so Dan can chill at home and do his thing by himself. So the weekends are a mix. Do you notice you're happier on days of different ratios? This is such an interesting question, and I wish I had thought of it before, like giving myself like at the end of the day, like a happiness score out of 10, just how are you feeling from 0 to 10, just like instinctively, like just give a number, and then being able to look at that would have been really cool. Alas, I did not do that. So I genuinely can't even like fake an answer to this question because I don't know. But my prediction would be that I need some social time. Like I feel like I would have really high happiness levels on the days where I do get social time. That's the only thing I can think of. Okay, does it vary much week on week? So we've seen the like average week, but obviously that doesn't really tell you like how much it varies week on week. But I did purposefully pick this 5 weeks because I knew that these 5 weeks were going to be very samey, because literally the week after I finished tracking it, I was then on my coaching course where Rowan was going to his childminders an hour earlier so I could get there on time, and Dan was doing pickup. So obviously the ratios and the split for that week would be wildly different. But I wanted for this experiment to be like the most average, like usual week, because obviously that's a bit of an anomaly. So I would say most of the time, no, it doesn't vary that much, with the odd things sprinkled in, but very rarely. Where do you draw the line between parenting, work, and spending time with kid, social? I think it's impossible to draw that line. It is just all blended into one. You know, sometimes he's an absolute joy to hang out with, other times not so much. But whatever it is that we're doing together, whether it is fun for me or not, I'm parenting. And like spending time with my kid and being social with my kid is part of my role as a parent as well. So I don't draw the line. Did you manage time with Dan every day? Also great question, and I have the numbers for you. So out of our 35 days, 8 of them I tracked 0% downtime. So that is 22.8% of the time, 0 downtime. That doesn't mean that he was away and we didn't see each other. It just meant that we didn't spend any one-on-one time together without Rowan doing something together those days, which, you know, is over 1/5 of the time, but it's not high enough that I'm worried for the relationship, because we need that. And also, like, we live in a 2-bedroom flat where we only have like this one reception room that's like the lounge and the kitchen. So sometimes we do need that time apart because we are on top of each other a lot. How much extra body admin does having a stoma add to your week? So most of my stoma stuff is done whilst Rowan is around. So it would have been tracked as parenting. Like, I will just be changing my bag after getting out of the shower in the mornings and Rowan's hanging about. So I don't have like the hard data on this of like specifically like managing having a stoma. I do remember though, during that 5 weeks, I had one emergency bag change that I had to do during the work day. So that I did track as body admin. And there was one trip that I took to the pharmacy to get some medication, but actually that wasn't stoma related, that was TTC related. And that was while Dan was looking after Rowan, so I was by myself. But other than that, and like actually just going to the toilet like a normal person, but not a normal person, it hasn't recently, touch wood, added that much extra time to my life. How would you spend your time in an ideal world? This is a hard question for me because I really like my life right now. And maybe it could be more ideal. Maybe there is another version of it all that actually does work better for me. But I'm like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat because this is actually really good, which I recognize is a great position to be in. I mean, can I say more leisure time? Even more leisure time? I think it'll be interesting to see how it all changes once like Rowan is at school, because that would be a whole different ball game and schedule. I don't know how that works. Do I want to work even less is the question. I don't think so. Do I want more social time? Yes. What would that eat into? Probably parenting. Do I want to spend less time with Rowan? Not yet. Maybe when he's older. Oh, it's hard. It's hard. Do you feel you have a good work-life balance? Yes, I do. But here's the thing of what I think generally about work-life balance is that the way that we've been led to think about it, like, is a myth. It doesn't exist. It's not like you have a perfect work-life balance in an average day or in an average week. It's actually like a bigger picture thing that you need to think about. So right now, I would say that my work-life balance is more heavily skewed towards life. And I have the data to back that up because the smallest slice of my pie was paid labor. But there have been times in my life where it was more heavily skewed towards work. And so it's not that during those times I had a bad work-life balance. No, it was just that work was taking priority over other things, or it was a bigger slice of the pie, and now it's a smaller slice of pie, and then maybe in like 5 or 10 years times it will be a bigger slice of the pie than it is now. And like, you know, once Rowan leaves home, then the parenting slice of the pie will obviously like dramatically shrink. So for me, it's not about having like a good work-life balance when it comes to like day to day necessarily, although like you do have to maybe take that into consideration at some point, especially if you're like feeling mega stressed and that things aren't working the way that you want them to work. But I find it more helpful to be like, in this current stage of life, this thing is my area of focus. This is the thing that's going to take more time, and this is not so much anymore. Okay, did this reveal anything to you? How do you feel about it? What do you want to change? Let's get in big reflection mode here. So I think one of the big things that I want to change is more social time. If I had to change anything, now that I think about it as well, like I'm like, what is taking up all of that me time, that 6.8% of me time? Because there's like other things that I want to do, and I'm like, oh God, like I want to play tennis more, so that would take up more time. And I'm like, what was I doing with that time? I don't even know. But I think the main thing it revealed to me is actually how little time of my like average week I spend on work, even though it feels like such a huge part of me, and it feels like something that I'm spending a lot of time on, because like Monday to Thursday for the vast majority of my time, like I am working. But actually, no, that's not true. It's not for the vast majority of my time, because on only 10 of the days out of the 35 did paid work exceed unpaid. But maybe it's because even though my work day is short, it's like I'm in it and I'm focused, that it feels like it's taking up more time. But because obviously this is like a 24-hour thing, it just goes to show that like how much time there is in those out of work hours, at least for me, because my work day is shorter. And I do think it's interesting, like my first reaction to seeing the numbers was like this guilt and shame around not being a productive member of society, like not spending every waking moment earning money, doing something that is profitable. And it's strange that I would even think that, because I'm like, I've escaped it. I've escaped it because the vast majority of my time isn't spent doing that. It's spent, doing unpaid labor, which as we've seen is worth a very decent full-time salary. But obviously I don't know how it like compares to other people, but the 16 or 17% of leisure time, like that's pretty decent. Like I'm pretty happy with that. And yet my first reaction was guilt and shame, when actually what I should be feeling is like, damn, I did it. Like, oh wow, I have a good life, rather than being like, I'm not doing it right, I should be working more. And maybe I will at some point in the future, but just not right now, you know? Not right now. Not whilst my kid's 2.5 and my husband's earning enough money that it doesn't matter. I realise that when I say that, I'm not earning zero money. It just means that I am able to take more risks and be more flexible with my work. We do very much still need my income, but just not as much as we used to, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, we made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. I would be really curious to hear if you have any insight into how your time is divided between these different categories, or like what your categories would be and how they might differ from mine if you were to do an experiment like this. Really keen just to generally hear your thoughts on it all. And again, thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and you can use my code 60HelloHannah to get 60% off your first box and then 20% off for your next 2 months, plus free desserts for life. Thanks again for watching. If you have any other suggestions of videos like this, experiments that I could do in this realm, then let me know. Curious to hear your ideas, and I hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.